Hello, we meet again. I'm Cheryl, retail investor, founder of TEA, the Engagement Appeal, and former proxy solicitation and corporate governance consultant. So just like with my previous episodes, I'm here to discuss the unfolding saga between the 7 UK investment trusts and the American activist hedge fund called Saba Capital Management. There is quite a lot to cover, so I will try to be as organized as possible. So we have a critical week ahead with 5 general meetings coming up. Today, Monday, the 3rd of February, we've got Baillie Gifford US Growth Trust taking place in Edinburgh and Keystone Positive Change here in London. So I have a letter of representation for all of the general meetings. But given the fact that Baillie Gifford and Keystone are both happening at the same time at 12 noon, I will be attending the Keystone shareholder meeting. Tomorrow, Tuesday, we have CQS Natural Resources Growth and Income and Henderson Opportunities Trust. So I will try to attend both, although they are likely to overlap. And then on Wednesday, there's a European Smaller Companies Trust. So as I mentioned, I own my shares through a nominee that's Interactive Investor. And basically with Interactive Investor, it's just so easy to vote and to request attendance at shareholder meetings. Essentially, they have completely debunked this whole antiquated or anachronistic view that if you are an individual holding through a nominee, you're not a real shareholder. So I will do a whole segment on private client broking platforms, but in this episode, I just wanted to touch on how the said platforms are helping to democratize investing and shareholder engagement, contrary to some of the antiquated and anachronistic narrative that we are hearing in traditional media. So myself, I own at least one share in 1,440 UK listed companies. I own those shares largely through one nominee, that is Interactive Investor. I also hold shares across many other nominees, including Trading 212, eToro, Robinhood. I have also tried other platforms that maybe more traditional individual investors use, like AJ Bell, Hargreaves Lansdown, Fidelity, and also in the past, as a proxy solicitation consultant, I will have engaged with all of these private client broking platforms. So essentially, there's this concept, which may have been true 10, 15, 20 years ago, that if you're an individual and you hold through a nominee, you're essentially not a real shareholder. That's no longer true. And actually, it's, in my opinion, passing the buck or basically the blame on these private client brokers that they're not doing their part. They are doing their part. All of these brokers here have voting facilities available to individuals like me. Many of the services are provided by Broadridge, which is the largest proxy voting agent. It would be really important to basically get across that we must not blame these platforms for lack of engagement from companies. Companies need to actually be interested in engaging their retail shareholders. And based on my experience attending AGMs and actually getting the help of other individuals like our Gen Z ambassadors, companies often do not want to engage with retail shareholders. They think they're a pain in the neck and basically are just not as good as institutional investors. Okay, let's go through the sudden surge of shareholder communications that I have received from the 7 UK investment trusts as a result of these requisition general meetings. Right, so basically prior to these requisitions, I received no communications from these companies. But since these requisitions, there has been an influx of mailings. Okay, so this is great to receive communications from companies, but as I have said before, it would be important for the companies to engage not just when there's a problem. And the volume of communications is insane. So I have prepared an Excel spreadsheet here, which I would be happy to share with anyone interested. I will leave a link in the description below. But basically, just recapping the number of mailings so far. So basically, Herald Investment Trust, I received a total of 1 mailing. Baillie Gifford US Growth, as we see here, 1. And then Keystone Positive Change, in total, I have received 3 mailings. So first mailing here, and then second mailing here, reminding me to vote with this beautiful, shiny, colored correspondence. And I guess they were worried that I had forgotten. So they sent me another one. So basically, I received two reminders. Okay, so three mailings in total. And then CQS Natural Resources, just one. Basically quite fulsome with this covering letter, which is a pullout, and the printed circular, all of which, just like the others, are available for download or viewing online. And then we have Henderson Opportunities Trust. I received a total of 3 mailings. So number 1, which I had shown previously, there's this cover letter, how to vote. So this is shiny, colored, printed materials, and then this booklet. Okay, and then I received a second mailing, and it's got the letter from the chair. I like how they put the photo and the QR code, makes it much more personal, and then how to vote. Okay, and then because 2 is not enough, they sent me a third one, this time just a short letter reminding me to vote again. So 3 for Henderson Opportunities Trust. And then European Smaller Companies Trust. How many did I receive? 3. Okay, this one is interesting. Okay, because what they do is they print and essentially have this blank piece of paper, except for my name and my address, preceding the letter from the chair. Again, I really like the personalization of the chair's picture being included in the QR code. So these are well done. And then how to vote, and then this circular. Okay, so that was the first mailing. And then a second mailing. And once again, there's this like habit of this blank piece of paper, except with my name and my address, preceding this letter from the chair. Okay. And then a third mailing. And our favorite, oh my goodness, blank piece of paper, except my name and my address. What's this one? Wow. Okay, so then basically a reminder letter with lots of red flashing at me. And my favorite picture of the chair and the QR code, and then telling me how to vote via Interactive Investor. Once again, I own 1 share. So I really appreciate the attention, but I also feel really bad for the costs being incurred. And then we've got Edinburgh Worldwide. Their general meeting is on the 14th of February. They're also holding their AGM on the same day. I've received 1 letter so far. So yeah, so basically there is quite a lot. And if we look at the ones who have been most active, we have already established that Keystone, Henderson Opportunities Trust, and European Smaller Companies are the ones who have been the most active. And why would that be? Let's take a look. I would assume that that is because of anxiousness around voting participation. Okay, so as already established, there is quite a lot of materials to go through, received largely from the companies. So to organize myself, I have actually put together an Excel spreadsheet that basically compiles all of the key information that I need to fairly reach a voting decision. and also essentially to assess the situation at large. So I do very much tap into my experience as a former proxy solicitation and corporate governance consultant when looking at these situations. I just can't help it. But let me share with you some of the um, tips and tricks I employ to basically organize myself. So it's just a simple Excel spreadsheet. I'd be happy to share a link to this so that we can share. But basically, I have the companies listed here, the 7 companies listed here by date of general meeting. Um, I hold at least 1 share in all of these companies through Interactive Investor. And basically, yes, as you will have seen, I have received correspondence in relation to each of these companies. I don't need to receive the correspondences in the mail because I get alerted by my broker, Interactive Investor, via their platform. So I get notified of all the shareholder meetings of all the companies that I hold via the II platform. And then basically I view the materials on the platform. And then if I wanted to research some more, I just go online and read the full notice of AGMs or general meetings, etc. online. But in any case, I have not just the information on the platform, but obviously all these paper materials that, to be honest with you, I just read online. Um, and then always important for me to look at the company's information on the London Stock Exchange. So I have included here the links to the LSE pages, London Stock Exchange pages of each of the companies, the index. So these are all main market or FTSE 250 market cap. So Herald clearly is the largest by market capitalization, followed by Bailey Gifford US Growth, and then Edinburgh Worldwide, European smaller companies, and then you have the rest in Keystone Positive Change, CQS Natural Resources Growth and Income, and Henderson Opportunities Trust. So I also indicate the date of the notice of general meeting, the microsite for the general meeting. So each of these companies have set up a microsite specific to the general meetings. And then the actual link to the notice of general meeting and even the RNS announcement related to the notice of general meetings. So why don't we just take a look at these actual notices of meetings. I've also indicated here whether the company had included the requisitionist, the activist investors 1,000 word letter that the activist, the requisitionist, is allowed to have included in the circulars. So in all cases, yes, this has been included. And then obviously in terms of the actual general meeting dates, we already established that Herald had theirs on the 22nd of January and that we have these meetings coming up this week. And then Edinburgh Worldwide is on the 14th of February. So I just wanted to take a look at the actual notices of meeting. So starting with Herald, they have taken down their general meeting microsite, which is a bit sus, to be honest with you, suspect. Not sure why they would take it down so quickly. Anyway, there is always Wayback Machines, so we can always find past websites using this archive. So in any case, Herald's notice of general meeting is still here, but by the by. So notice of general meeting for Bailey Gifford US Growth Trust, PLC. So you have this standard format that, frankly, I used to use as far back as 20 years ago. So very little has changed. But basically, you see the rationale and the recommendation of the board, and then included is the 1,000 word letter from the requisitionist. And then we have Keystone Positive Change, similar format. Okay, we will also see the 1,000 word statement, and then CQS, same thing. what I like about CQS, to be honest, is they put out RNS announcements informing of their the webinars and investor meet events um, that they had. So this is being very slow at the moment, but it looks very much like the company is taking as much advantage as possible of sources of communicating that they have and then RNSing about it. So that's really, really good. I like the fact that they are using Investor Meet Company to engage with investors and basically do online roadshows. So this is really, really cool. It's great for a company to take advantage of these solutions. So Henderson Opportunities Trust PLC, kudos to the company for using their creativity in producing their circular. So I like the colorfulness of this document, how it's structured in terms of the fonts, the boxes they use. It's much more engaging and progressive. And again, this picture, so yeah, well done to Wendy and team for putting this together. Certainly much more forward-looking and marketing collateral structured piece of information here. But this is the smallest of the lot. This is the smallest company of all 7. And they sent 3 mailings. Is it too much? Possibly. And then another good example of more engaging and well-designed notice of general meeting is European Smaller Companies Trust PLC. So this probably just has a lot to do with the designer they have on board or the advisors, the other advisors. But basically, this is great to see. I wonder how much this costed in comparison to the other circulars. Anyway, and then we have here quite strong, not just quite, very strong. So Edinburgh Worldwide Investment Trust. Vote to stop Saba. Wow, okay. Right, so this is quite a comprehensive notice of meeting because it covers 2 meetings, the general meeting, the requisition general meeting, and also their annual general meeting, which they have moved up from March to take place on the same day as the general meeting on the 14th of February. So this follows the same format as the other circulars, but is extremely comprehensive, very comprehensive in their provision of information to their shareholders. So how to complete a form of proxy. This is an oldie but a goodie that we have used in the industry for a very long time now. So since 20 years ago when I first started in the industry. So you've got instructions for the requisition general meeting, which is basically vote against. Here you go. And then for the annual general meeting, it's in green because they want us to vote for. Okay, and then the standard business here. And then the 1,000 word letter from the requisitionist. Right, so basically you've got the notices of meetings from each of the companies, and then some more logistical information regarding the meetings. And basically all of them are taking place in London except for these 2 Baillie Gifford located events in Edinburgh. So I'm going to have to miss this Baillie Gifford US Growth today. However, my intention is to attend the Edinburgh Worldwide meeting on the 14th. Well, actually, the Edinburgh Worldwide meetings, because it's the general meeting and the AGM, which, to be honest with you, is quite smart of the company to hold both on the same day. So in terms of the voting deadlines, um, Interactive Investor and the other proxy voting platforms will have a voting deadline just slightly sooner than the official proxy voting deadline. So the proxy voting deadline for annual general meetings and for general meetings and requisition general meetings is ordinarily 48 business hours before the actual meeting itself. So as we see here, um, my broker's deadline is just a day or a few days before the actual proxy voting deadline. And then I have requested letters of representation across each of these general meetings, plus the AGM for Edinburgh worldwide. And then what is really surprising and disappointing is the lack of online participation. So all of these meetings are in person. So unless I am wrong, there is no hybrid option. So we can't attend in person or online. So best practice, as many of us know, is for hybrid shareholder meetings, i.e. both in person and online. So the biggest service providers are Lumi Global. So they do a lot of the hybrid AGMs during proxy season. And then increasingly you've got Investor Meet Company, which is very good, but is also very cost effective. They may not have all the bells and whistles of Lumi, but basically they have a great service too. I'm just really surprised and disappointed that this is not available, especially given how many mailings some of these companies have undertaken. So this is something to look into in the future. So interestingly, my millennial colleague, Ms. Millennial Money, Sarah Penny, tracks the chat that happens on Interactive Investor. So I introduced this community chat platform recently, which I find to be very boomer. So again, that's why it's ironic that my millennial colleague is on this. Whereas I am actually largely on very Gen Z platforms. So my absolute favorite is Trading 212. My gosh, it is so active with hundreds and thousands of chats every single day across many different companies, but largely the hot Gen Z favorite companies. So the other platform where I'm active is the eToro community chats. So basically, on a separate episode, Miss Millennial Money and I will cover these community chats and basically show you guys how investors are constantly talking about different companies, retail investors, that is. From my perspective, it's a great way of actually understanding retail investor sentiment much more. Okay, so in terms of issued share capital, look, it's really important to me. It's really important to understand the shares outstanding in order to be able to forecast what votes we might expect, what voting levels we might be able to expect. So this is just very, I just took this information from basically public filings out there. And then, as I showed in my last video, it's important to look at previous AGM dates and the voting that took place at previous AGMs in order to inform ourselves on what we might be able to expect at these general meetings. So the first thing to point out really is, for example, Herald, they succeeded in defeating all of the resolutions at their 22nd January general meeting, but their AGM is coming up on the 23rd of April. And guess what? It's highly unlikely that Saba is going to go away by then. So then those guys can just decide to vote against all of the director resolutions and whatever other resolutions proposed. So the company needs to continue to be on the lookout for that. Keystone Positive Change, there is a lot of activity happening with this company, with the scheme they have, their AGM, etc. So quite confusing, to be honest. And then CQS, their AGM was in December, so you would argue that it would have made sense to have bundled the AGM and the general meeting together. But again, this is all very confusing for retail shareholders and very expensive, actually, um, also for all shareholders. And then Henderson Opportunities Trust, their AGM was in March of last year, 7th of March. So the expectation is they would hold their AGM again um, in March. I have to double check. Are they holding? Yes, I think their meeting is only the requisition general meeting. I'll just double check that. And then you've got European Smaller Trusts, European Smaller Companies Trust. Their AGM is on the 25th of November, so still some ways to go. And then Edinburgh Worldwide had their AGM on the 5th of March last year, but as we had already established, they have accelerated their AGM to take place on the 14th of February on the same time as their requisition general meeting, which is quite smart, to be honest. So well done to the companies and advisors for doing that. Number one, to save on costs, but then number two, strategically, very clever because shareholders will likely just replicate their vote at both meetings, right? So this will be interesting to see. Vote outcomes, right? Um, I have to continue to populate these, but essentially the understanding is that all of these AGM resolutions across each of the companies, 2024 AGM resolutions all passed. And then looking at the voting turnout relative to the issued share capital. So the issued share capital, the current issued share capital we have indicated here. And then the 2024 AGM vote turnout. So Herald Investment Trust, we already established that they beat the So Herald Investment Trust, we have already established that they defeated all of the resolutions. So their voting turnout is 38.59%. So looking at voting turnout, the size of these companies, one would expect about 70% voting turnout. But these are investment trusts, largely held by retail shareholders. So this is why we see such small numbers. And if the company is not taking effort to identify and engage their retail shareholders, well, they're going to have these small numbers. So clearly, until now, these companies have not been actively engaging their individual investors. So the ones that I would be worried about if I was the company are Keystone Positive Change, CQS. So both of these have single-digit vote turnout. Now, the chair of Keystone Positive Change was on MSNBC, or sorry, which was it? CNBC. Basically, I think she mentioned that about 20% of their issued share capital votes. So I have to double check this, but on my assessment, only 2.38% of their issued share capital voted. But we'll take a look at this together. And then CQS is another one that is in danger, in my opinion. So another one that I'm concerned about is Edinburgh Worldwide. But to be honest with you, they're making a lot of effort to engage with retail shareholders via the traditional methods I showed you of their notice of general meeting, their letter to shareholders like me, but then also the chair has been very active in the press and appearing on various interviews, on YouTube videos. So basically, the thinking is that they are doing a really proactive proxy solicitation. So, so they're hoping that they will amass the necessary numbers to defeat the resolutions. I would love to see the chair of Edinburgh Worldwide face off actually with Boaz Weinstein. Both seem like really interesting guys, both alpha male. Okay, next, let's take a look at the um, holdings of Saba. So I have listed here the Rule 8 announcements um, on the London Stock Exchange, the date of the Rule 8. So I have listed the most recent announcement, and then basically the number of shares and the percentage of issued share capital held by Saba. So in some cases, um, their the positions that have voting rights is slightly less than the total holding. So, for example, at Herald Investment, this is being very slow, but basically at Herald, um, Saba has about 29% of the issued share capital. However, I believe only 27.8 has voting rights. So they're so the total position with voting rights might be slightly lower than these percentages here. Um, so there's already quite a lot to take away from this. I would also look at the top shareholders of these companies to determine in more detail what the possible voting outcome would be. I did this for the Herald Investment Trust shareholder meeting. I won't have time to do every single company uh, in this video, but basically we'll just continue with this process here and try to make some conclusions. And then, as to be expected, given how Saba has decided to proceed with these requisitions of the traditional American activist way of remove all and replace with their nominees, the proxy advisors, ISS Glass Lewis don't like that and would just recommend against. I have worked on activist cases, including on Alliance Trust for Elliott, um, and others were basically stock spirits, for example, where we actually received recommendations in favor of the activist um, because of our arguments and also how we structured the resolutions in a more gently way. So then we don't actually have to, we didn't, on behalf of the activists, we didn't have to basically present a competing strategy to the incumbent. So the route that the activist has decided to go down is actually a very challenging one, which ordinarily would not get supported by a proxy advisor who basically go through their box tick exercise. Um, so for me, what is important is actually, I don't want to just hear one side of the story. And essentially, that's what I'm getting. Just one side of the story from the company. Yes, of course, there's the 1,000 word letter from the activist that's included in the circular, but that the company's narrative and then the domination of um, that narrative in mainstream media basically gives me no additional information